Rev up your engine! Alright, today I have a very interesting experiment. This ATS chemical oil cleaner. It's supposed to clean all the carbon from inside the engine and quiet them down. Now, as you can see, this is a very noisy Volkswagen GTI. We'll start it up. You can easily hear the noise it's making. The GDI engines have a tendency of carboning up, and you get a lot of engine noise as the carbon builds up. Things aren't lubricated right. You hear rattling. A lot of times they start burning oil, and here's why. In order for engines to get better gas mileage, all cars use lower tension piston rings these days. We'd rebuild engines, you had to get a piston. You had to clamp it down, put it on top of the block, and then hammer it in with wood and a hammer. Because it's so tight, the pistons were tight. They had very high tension rings, so they were tight and they sealed good. But of course, more friction, worse gas mileage. So they all have low tension springs. You can push those in with your bare hand. If you ever rebuild one of those, you can grab the rings with your fingers. You can push the whole thing in. You don't need tools. You don't need a hammer and wood. That's less pressure. They don't seal as well. And as they age, if oil gets clogged in there, they'll stick inside the pistons. The rings won't come out because they don't have much tension. You'll burn a lot of oil. Now, this may sound crazy. They spent over $1 million and 8 years figuring out how to get rid of carbon inside the engine. They say the carbon inside the engine with the oil is different than the carbon that's made by burning gasoline. This pours right into your engine oil. That baby's on there tight. Either that or I'm getting old. Pour the engine oil. We're gonna see if it really works. A whole can. And now we're gonna run it at a fast idle for about 15 minutes. We'll idle at about 2,000 RPMs for about 15 minutes. Now I've read about phenomenal results, but I might as well be from Missouri, because I say show me. This is gonna test this system out good. And as usual, nobody's paying me for this. This is just a test. If it doesn't work, I'll show you. The engine will be just as noisy as it was before. Maybe it'll be even noisier. I don't know. We're going to run it for 15 minutes. Then, like they say on a can, change the oil and filter because all the carbon's going to be in the oil and in the filter. Put in new oil. We'll see what it sounds like. And interestingly enough, even though I put in the engine oil, I can smell it coming out of the tailpipe. That shows the engine and the exhaust, they're not perfectly sealed. The engine oil should not be coming out fumes of the exhaust. That shows piston rings and stuff are worn. We're gonna see if this clears some of it up. I do have to say, over the years, I've seen a lot of snake oil products, but after testing out their fuel additive, I was rather impressed by that. The same guys in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, I've known Bernie Thompson quite some time at Automotive Test Solutions. As far as I'm concerned, the guy's almost as crazy as me, but his partner is a computer whiz. Between the testing and him coming up with ideas, I can't wait to see what this oil cleaner does, especially on a Volkswagen. Obviously, rings are worn because you can smell the stuff burning out the back. You still gotta wait 15 minutes though at a fast idle. But I do have to say, I asked Bernie, I said, Bernie, how come only 15 minutes? He says, doesn't take forever, but in that short period of time, the engine starts idling faster. I got it set with the throttle holder. I had it at 2,000. It went up to 4,000. That shows me that it's cleaning something because it's freer moving now. For the same throttle, it went up. I had to set it back to 2,000. I can hear it going up a little higher now too. I don't know. I think the cleaner's doing something. But as for sound, is it going to make the engine quieter because of that? Let's find out. Now shut the engine off. We're going to change the oil, but this is really hot, so get a fan. Cool it off 15-20 minutes so you don't burn yourself when you're changing the oil. So it's cooling off, we jack the car up. Up we go. And this is a really low car, so we need a jack stand. So get our oil pan and crawl under. So we get a 19mm socket. And out comes the old oil. Germans really put long screws in these things. There we go. There's the old dirty oil. And it is dirty. As you can see in my hand, that's dirty oil. All the carbon and stuff is getting in this oil that we're changing out. Drained out yard's gonna get a couple of drips. We got a new gasket on here. We'll put that back on. And of course, we have to change the oil filter. It's one of these stupid crap box plastic ones with the paper filter inside. You need a big socket for this. Okay, now we can do it by hand. I really hate these ones that have paper inside. They're such a pain in the butt. But that's the Germans for you. Plastic junk. There we go. Here's the new filter and gasket. So we put the new filter and gasket in. Tighten it up. First you tighten it by hand. Then you get the wrench. Because you want it snug so it doesn't come loose and leak. There we go. And a little tight. That's it. Look at that filthy black oil. Seems to got a lot of carbon out. Now we'll fill it up with oil. In this case, it holds 4.9 quarts of 5W30. So in it goes. Nice clean oil. Then we'll put the top back on. Move the jack stand and let it down. Jack out of the way. Now comes the moment of truth. They're going to start it up. On your mark. Get set. Go! So let's compare that to the original sound. Now yes, this is a Volkswagen GTI with well over 100,000 miles on it. It's gonna make noise. It's been abused in the past. Guys drive them hard, and they're Volkswagens. They get loud as they age. I'd never buy one personally. That's my choice. I fix cars. I don't like a noisy car. I like nice quiet Toyotas. If you compare that last noise after the cleaning to the first real noisy one, you can definitely hear there's less mechanical noise. There's less wear going on. Good use these guys told me about, and I gotta test it out when I find one, is in those late model GM V8s that burn a lot of oil. GM says it's normal to burn a quart of oil every 1,000 miles or so. Not normal to me, but with those low tension piston rings, if you don't change the oil enough, they get dirty, they stick, you're gonna burn oil because they're not expanding and sealing right. When I get one of those that burns oil, I can do the same thing, then I'm gonna let them drive the car 5,000 miles. And we'll see if it went down, because the guys at Automotive Test Solutions said they did it with one of their wife's cars, and it went from burning a quart of oil every 800 or 900 miles to not even half a quart between oil changes every 5,000. If I find a result like that, then I know they're telling me the truth. I can tell by the sound here. My next test is going to be get an oil burner, do this treatment. This particular one isn't an oil burner yet, so I can't use this as the test. Anybody out in Clarksville got an oil burner, especially a GM V8, contact me. Come here, you'll get a free oil change. I'll put the stuff in and we'll see what happens after 5,000 miles. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Synonym says, I'm planning to buy a Hyundai Elantra 2013 with 120,000 miles for $4,000. Will it be a good buy? No. They don't hold up like Toyotas and Hondas, you know? I mean, you got 120,000 miles, you're paying $4,000. They're not that well made, you know, they just aren't. They don't last 200, 300, 400,000 miles like Hondas and Toyotas do. Now, it would be okay if you could get one a lot less mileage, that'd be okay. But with that mileage on it, I wouldn't pay $4,000 for it. I mean, now I've seen people buy Hondas and Toyotas for that kind of money, and they keep them for years and they're real happy. But Hyundais, I never had a customer buy a Hyundai with that kind of mileage for that kind of money and be satisfied in the end. Stuff started breaking. Transmissions go out, engines go out. It's really not worth it. You want a higher quality car. Like you said, if it was a Toyota or Honda, yeah, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't care. But the Korean cars, they still don't have the quality. They can BS all they want. They still have problems with engines, transmissions. I would not buy one. Too many miles for one of those. Joey B says, I want to know a little about air conditioning system and hybrids. What's different in them? The early ones, notwithstanding, all the modern ones generally have electronic air conditioning compressors that run at a higher voltage, like 120, 200 volts. They have to use a completely different oil, because if you worked on one and you put the normal oil in and not the hybrid oil that goes for high voltage, you could short the whole system out. Two is, they don't have a clutch on them and they don't run off a fan belt. They're electrically driven. So it's all done internally. It's not something you should ever try to mess with yourself, because you're dealing with higher voltage. You could kill yourself. You need to have special gloves. You need to really understand how the systems work. Now, normally they last quite some time because they don't get the vibration of a fan belt driving them and have the clutch and the shaft and everything. They're more like the air conditioners you use in your house, which are pretty well made. When they do break, man, it's going to cost you a fortune, because most guys that work on houses aren't going to work on a car AC, and most guys that work on car AC don't want to mess with 120 or 240 volts. So when AC breaks on a hybrid car, it's a lot more complex than on a regular car. Corbin, who says, I'm going to unplug my downstream oxygen sensor on bank 2, my leaky manifold, to see if it stops the car from jerky acceleration. Well, of course you could fix your manifold, you know, but yeah, it might help some, because when you unplug it, the computer gets no data. Now, that will make your check engine light come on, but then the computer has to guess, and it has graphs to look at to take a guess to make the car run as well as it possibly can without any information from the sensor. And sometimes in the short run, they actually can run a little bit better that way, because they're not reacting to the problem that the leak created. So give it a try, see what happens. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, Remember to ring that bell.